What's happening, Fisher? Welcome to ¿Qué pasa? I'm your host, Kidian Suarez. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Fernando Ontiveros-Llamas of Fish's Biology Department. We'll chat about his journey in higher ed, some of the research he's working on, and upcoming event he's helping plan here on campus. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with the interview. Welcome, Fernando.
Thank you.
So, what do you currently do here at Fisher?
I am an associate professor of biology in the Division of Life Sciences.
So, what is the life sciences?
Yes, it's composed of three programs. We have biology, athletic performance, and sustainability. I teach mostly in biology, and I also teach nursing students.
So, what really ignited this passion for you to pursue this career?
Oh, biology. Since I was I remember grammar school, elementary school, maybe middle school, I wanted to be a biologist because I like nature. I live kind of in the countryside and I wanted to get out and look at the bugs. I used to collect spiders and feed them things they wouldn't eat, but I didn't know better. And so I wanted to be a biologist, then I wanted to be a scientist, and then I got interested in infectious disease. And so I ended up studying how our body fights infectious disease. I'm an immunologist.
Interesting. So, from 1996 to 2001, correct me if I'm wrong, you studied at the National Autonomous University of Mexico.
Correct.
But in 1999, you took a semester to study abroad at the University of California, Berkeley, right?
Correct.
So, can you talk to us a little bit about this, study abroad? Did this influence your decision to work in the United States?
Yes and no. The no is because I always wanted to study in the United States. You know, when I started my college studies, I knew that I wanted to be a scientist by the time that I started. And I knew that the best way to do very good science was to come to the States to do a PhD here and to maybe stay as a researcher. And so I wanted to come to the States for sure. The study abroad, I just thought was something cool to do, go somewhere outside of the country. I was going to go to Canada, but they canceled the program with Canada. No. And they told me, well, you can go to California. And I said, yes, sure. And so I went to California, and it was tough. It was hard academically, but I learned so much. And it showed me that I could perhaps later come back for graduate school.
That's true. So just for the people that are wondering, were you raised in Mexico or did you just decide to study in Mexico?
I grew up in Mexico. I went to school in Mexico. Like you said, I went to college in Mexico. We're very much connected, right? Mexico is so close to the US. And so we consume the same things that you guys consume here, right? Or that now I consume here. So I was very much familiar with the culture, with the kinds of opportunities there are. I did not know that graduate school in the sciences was free, right? Like you do a PhD, and it's not only free, but they pay you, right? And so it's a 5-6 year program to do a PhD, but you're receiving a stipend that doesn't make you rich, but allows you to be a student, right? And so I was very lucky that the National University in Mexico, the tuition is free. If you get in, it's free. And so I had no problem there, and I came here. The process of selection to come to the US as a foreigner is very tough. But I was lucky that in 2000, you might have seen this, in 2000 I came to do a research program at U of R. And so I got to know U of R at Rochester. I liked it. They liked me, and they offered me to come back for grad school.
So I'm a little bit interested. You did your research at University of Rochester, but now you're a teacher here at Fisher. So how was your arrival at Fisher, and what made you stay here?
Yes. Well, when I was finishing at U of R, I finished U of R and I went to Boston for a couple of years of what is called a postdoc. After your PhD, you can do research in somebody else's lab, and you work there. My wife by then is from Buffalo. And so we like the area, we like Western New York. And when there was opportunity for both her and I, she's a scientist too, for both of us to come back to Rochester, we just like it here. We like the people. I'm not afraid to say we like Wegmans too, so we came back. There was no Wegmans in Boston. We came back close to her family in Buffalo. And when I was working again at U of R as a researcher, as a postdoc researcher, the position opened at Fisher. By then I knew that Fisher, for example, at Nazareth, were very much about teaching. It's a little bit less research than at U of R or RIT and more teaching. And by then I knew that I liked teaching, and so I applied for the job, and I was very happy to come here.
Oh, great. So you mentioned research, and actually, you're currently leading a research on the development of low-cost, ultra-thin microfluid devices for education and diagnostic. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. I'm an immunologist, like I was telling you, and so I'm very much interested in infectious disease and how our body responds to it, how we can detect it, diagnostics, and these kinds of things. When I was doing my last bit of research at U of R, I met this group, the Department of Bioengineering, that does this thing called microfluidics. Microfluidics are little devices that use very tiny amounts of fluid to do chemical reactions, to do diagnostics and things like that. For example, the COVID test that everybody does at their home is a little, very basic microfluidic device because you put a little bit of liquid in there and now you get a response, right? And so I started, when I came to Fisher, I decided that that's what my research I wanted to, what I wanted to do at Fisher. And I reached back to that professor at U of R and I said, hey, do you want to collaborate? He was very happy to, to work together. And when I was there, I realized that it could be very expensive to build these devices. And so me and my students devised a new way of making them low cost, to make them in a way that we can have an answer within hours instead of within days. And so that worked really well, and for the last 10 years we're pretty much the only lab, or one of the few labs in the US that does this kind of technology that students can build their own microfluidic devices.
Wow. So is this microfluid device for a specific sickness, or are you guys trying to search something specific?
Right. At first, it's just the platform. We have a way of making devices that then you can apply to many different things. The current project that we have money, we got almost $500,000 from NSF, not just Fisher, but with U of R, is specifically for detecting things like COVID, yes, but we can also detect certain diseases that are not necessarily infectious, but for example, we're trying to build one for sickle cell disease, right? When the shape of the red blood cells changes and we can detect when it changed and that kind of thing. I can talk about this for hours, but we probably don't have that time.
Well, I think that's awesome. So I mentioned before that I went through your curriculum vitae that's currently 18 pages long.
Right.
Which includes researches, mentees, professional development, and so much more. Can you tell me, what do you think is your proudest achievement amongst all these successes you have?
The reason that it's 18 pages long, you notice, is because I have at least 2 or 3 pages just with names of students, right? So there's about 40 or so students that have gone through the lab in the last 10, 12 years. And to be honest, when, for example, during the summer, that sometimes there's no students around, for almost 3 months, we're here, but the students are not. It's very boring, there's no energy. So working with the students is part of the good achievement. It's something that Fisher gives you that is not necessarily found everywhere else. So I guess I am very proud of my students when I see them go and succeed somewhere else, right? So I have a student that recently got married and had a beautiful baby, and he's now a postdoc at MIT. So I did very little to contribute to that, but I'm very proud of him. So that kind of working with the students is definitely good. There's other great things about research. When you find yourself doing something that actually does move the field a little bit forward, that's great. But at Fisher is very much about the students, for sure.
That's nice. So as someone that had the opportunity of studying in Mexico and be immersed with the culture, because obviously you were born and raised there, how do you try to implement that into teaching or researches or just everything you do?
Yeah, I'm trying to think about that. I guess a little thing that comes to mind immediately is the idea that sometimes you want to let my students know, make them aware that we're very privilege here in the US, right? Because there's a lot of resources, a lot of support for research. When I look at, when I was doing research as an undergraduate, and when I look at collaborators that I have today in Mexico, the same kind of reagents, the same kind of experiments that we do, it costs 2 or 3 times for them to do it. And I can order a reagent today and I'll have it in my desk tomorrow. And for them, it will take a month and a half or 2 months. So knowing that perhaps gives you a little bit of, realize how good we have it, right? So that's a little bit of that. The rest, honestly, research in general, science in general, functions about the same in terms of the process of thinking and the process of experimentation anywhere, right? So I don't see anything obvious that I necessarily bring with me to research because I have the Mexican heritage in that sense. I'm sure that my character goes into it a little bit, and of course my character was formed in Mexico. So I'm sure that there's plenty of that. So that's what I can say about that.
Well, thank you. I also heard through my connections that you're planning on celebrating Our Lady of Guadalupe.
That's
Can
right.
you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. For those that don't know, Guadalupe is an apparition of Our Lady almost 500 years ago in Mexico. This was a difficult time when colonial time was happening and all the colonization, the exchange between cultures was happening. Not always nicely, but sometimes there were good things about it. And so there was this miracle, we consider it a miracle, of this image that was found by it appeared in the tilma, in the clothing of this native Mexican, Juan Diego. And this image of the Virgin is one of a mestiza, right? So somebody that it has both, in that case, a Spanish and native Mexican heritage. So now we have that coming together of the two cultures, which is something that is characteristic in particular of the Spanish colony, where the people who colonized actually did mix with the people who were in the colonies, right? And so there's something that in Mexico is very much appreciated. Somebody makes the joke that there's more people that love Guadalupe than even Christians in the whole country, right? Because it's something that is it's a very Mexican thing for many years, for hundreds of years. And now, recently in the last 20, 30 years, Pope John Paul II, whose feast is today, he pronounced Guadalupe as the Queen of the Americas, of the whole continent, right? From Alaska to Argentina. And so it's something that is a very come together, very unifying figure. I have a devotion to Our Lady, and Guadalupe is something that, beyond being just Mexican or Latin American, is something that feels like it unites everyone. Yeah, I'll expand just a tiny bit more. About 6, 7 years ago, the Latin Student Union proposed that we would bring an image to the chapel when the chapel was being built. So I think that in that sense, Fisher is very also privileged to have this nice blessing of having a beautiful, locally painted, put together image of Our Lady that I invite everybody to come and see at the chapel. It's right at the entrance, and it's very beautiful.
It is. So if anyone wanted to check out your work, where can they find it or even find you?
Well, my work in terms of research, there is a website, the website for Fisher, you can find there my curriculum, you can find we have a website for the lab. So there's my students and there's the work that we do. So that's an easy first way of finding what we do. But I'm also there. In biology at least, our door is, for all the faculty is always open if we're there in the office. So everybody's welcome to come and stop by and say hi. And I'll tell them about all the crazy things I like and happy to share.
Great. So are there any words you would like to say to the people that share your interests?
Yes. When it comes to science, there's lots of faculty at Fisher that love to talk to students about science. So I'm happy to talk to anyone that is interested in what I'm interested, but also will direct them to other faculty in science because they're all happy to share. When it comes to Guadalupe, I would invite everybody. We're going to have a little something happening on December 12th, the Feast of Guadalupe, at the chapel, organized by the Latin Student Union and myself. And so everybody's welcome to come and learn a little bit about Guadalupe. The image has a lot of significance, a lot of symbols that I'll explain a little bit. And we'll hopefully have some nice little treats of Mexican cuisine, Latin American cuisine.
Well, thank you for joining us today, Fernando.
Thank you for the invitation.
And to everyone watching, thank you for tuning in. Make sure to check him out at Ontiveros Lab and on the Fisher's page under his full name. Have a nice day. Adios.